Welcome back to season 2 of Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. I am your host, Marcia Blaine, a licensed professional counselor, a clinical hypnotherapist, an author, motivator, and life coach. Join us during this season as we begin to normalize freedom. Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Welcome back to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Listen, you all know how I am about bringing people to the audience and being able to give you things that you need so that you can be your best self. On the last week and a half, I went out and said, God, listen, this podcast thing is doing what it does, but where am I in it? How am I supposed to be in it? And what am I doing? And just this week alone, people started reaching out to me to be a guest versus me reaching out to them. But you need to understand this book right here is a gem. I don't know if y'all can really see these tabs, but Kaleema reached out to me about the book. And I immediately went, we were just talking about how we do our background investigation before we, deal with people, because that's just how I am. Um, I went Google, went to Amazon and looked at the book, went on her Facebook page, the whole 9 yards, because I believe that my life is anointed and that I can't just bring anybody before the audience that has been purposed for me. So when I got the book yesterday evening about 6 o'clock, I have been diving into this book. So we're going to get started. The book is called Hidden in Plain Sight. Please, please, please run out to Amazon, grab your copies. I promise you, you may want to grab two, especially after we get into some of the guts of the book, because you're going to recognize the freedom that's going to come with it. So, Kaleema, thank you so much for your yes to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Give us some background on you.
I'm from North Carolina,
Okay.
and I've been writing since I was 12, just writing short stories and poetry. I always thought I would, become a poet or a novelist. In undergrad, I majored in English lit,
Okay.
but as life would have it, life keeps lifing. I When I left college, I ended up working at a university, and then I became interested in grants and contracts. Long story short, I never wrote that novel. I went to graduate school and I changed my major to urban planning and public administration. So I started
Mhm.
working as a policy analyst, and I was a healthcare policy analyst. I worked at the CDC in emergency response, at the Department of Commerce and HRSA. I worked with pediatric mental health. And I never even thought really about, off and on, I would think about my book of poetry. I have several books around here that I've written, not published. And then, so I just really actually retired from federal government during COVID to take care of my dad. And so that's where things just started kind of jumping off, at that point. I was married at the time, and this brings us to the book because during that time, my then husband and son and I went on a vacation and he abandoned us there. And I just didn't even know what was happening. I was completely blown away. But then I found out that this happens a lot. It's something that people do now. Like you say, people ghost people on social media, well, they're ghosting people in real life. And so after I spoke to so many women about this, and they said, this happens to to lots of women, not just Muslims, but Christians and Catholics and Black, white, and Hispanic. And so this is what brought me to write the book because I'm a policy analyst and I love to do research. So while I was in therapy, I was researching this whole phenomenon about abandonment and narcissism as a part of my therapy. And that's how we get to the book. So that's how the book came about. It wasn't my intent to write a book about this, but just from doing my research, just to heal myself, I
Mhm.
said, this is something that I can put together from my professional training as a policy analyst. I can make it a quick guide and let people know these are the things you need to look out for. This is the corrective action plan that needs to take
Mhm.
place within ourselves and around us. And so that's what I do. And so I analyze the policy and procedure of abandonment because,
You know, it's
what I
this
do.
is so phenomenal. One, I'm a federal employee. I went from Department of Treasury to now being at the VA and
Oh, wow.
retiring in 2025. So I'm
Mhm.
excited about that. But as you were talking about things in life and lifing, right? I had someone to ask earlier today, how do I know when to let go of situations? And so as I was thumbing through the book, the first thing that jumped out at me is the secret weapon of the secret art of weaponizing abandonment, because
Yeah.
so many people are impacted by abandonment. But it starts at the place of needing to belong in the first place because of all of the societal stuff, about belonging and things of that nature that's coming up, right? So as you talk about weaponizing abandonment, tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, you just jump right in, don't you?
I do, because this book is packed
Yeah,
with so much, and I
yeah.
want to give them as much as possible. Um, so we can ease back out.
No, 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 I'm good, I'm good. Weaponizing abandonment, that means, because oftentimes, we think that abandonment is something that was happenstance, a crime of passion, but it's something that's definitely planned out. And weaponizing abandonment is actually abandoning the family or the spouse for punishment because they did not comply with something, or they were not amenable, or they didn't, whatever it is they didn't do, like, this is your punishment. Not that we're going to have a discussion. I'm not going to, go down this road. I'm just going to punish you, you know, excuse me, punishing you, with this abandonment and planning out, this process. It's a
That's so amazing to me that you use the word punish,
mhm.
because a lot of people don't see it as that. And so they kind of pull the energy into them as if it was something wrong that they did. So I love the fact that you use the word punish, because that's what abandonment does. It punishes you because you didn't adhere. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And it's so amazing how society has said, you know what, it's okay, especially for women, right? Women's voices are lost very early, and just in the process of life. And so when we don't comply, when we don't adhere, we take the risk of that abandonment. Because when we think about our foremothers, back during a time when they weren't allowed to work, they had to tolerate a lot of stuff because of that fear of being cared for and that abandonment issue. So when I saw that, I was like, my goodness, if more people, well, let me ask you this. I don't want to put my perspective on it. What was your intent in that abandonment chapter? What did you want people to understand?
In well,
So that's chapter 2. That's weaponizing the abandonment, giving them
yes,
that
my intent.
understanding.
Well, what I wanted to do was, and I asked, the reader to be patient with me because it could be, I guess, a workplace hazard being a policy analyst. I want to give all the details, and I wanted to give the background of narcissism, of psychological abuse, mental abuse, spiritual abuse, because I wanted people, like you said, because they think, oh, people can go wherever they want to go. Well, yeah, they can. But what you can't do and what you shouldn't do is orchestrate an entire process to purposely injure, the other party with the
Yeah.
abandonment. Because many women end up homeless, living in their cars with their children. They lose their jobs. They, become clinically depressed and even commit suicide from this type of behavior. And
Yeah.
so in my book, I don't talk the book is really not focused on my experience, although it is there because I interviewed several other women. And so they were having abandonment, during the courtship, just disappear, during the engagement, just disappear. One woman, right after the wedding, they had a whirlwind romance. He insisted on this huge wedding. And then the next day, they get on the, excuse me, this fall season is getting to me.
I
They get
know, I know.
and on the way to the honeymoon, he immediately starts degrading her on the plane. Now, none of this had ever happened during their courtship. It didn't happen, during, them getting to know each other's families. But as soon as he got her on that plane, he started degrading her. As soon as they got to the location of their honeymoon, which was out of the country, he abandoned her 2 or 3 times when she didn't comply with whatever, he wanted her to comply with. And so, um, I went a lot into the history of the rights of women, because I wanted people to understand that this country, although we have lots of rights now, it wasn't until the Clinton administration that abuse of your wife and sexual assault of your wife became a federal crime. It was not a crime. And even right now, abandonment is not a crime. It's not a crime to abandon your spouse, except if they are in need of medical attention.
Hmm.
um, excuse me, that is the only way that it is considered a crime. So it's not a
Yeah.
crime to take your spouse out of the country and leave them there. It's not a crime to take your family someplace, and just take off and then leave them not only with the psychological and the emotional abuse, but leave them with the financial abuse and leave them destitute, and just walk off from mortgages and car payments and health insurance payments and just walk off and leave. It's not a crime to do that. Now, just because it's not a crime, it doesn't mean that it's ethical, right?
Right.
And so that's what I talk about a lot in that weaponizing abandonment, to help people understand that this is not, saying that you don't have the right to leave, you don't have the right to separate, you don't have the right to divorce. Abandonment is not a situation where you're having a conversation and you're discussing separation. We never discussed separation. And we went on this family vacation and then he just left. And it was
Hmm.
all planned out and intended, in that manner. And so when I spoke with other women, there was all of the all of the steps were there. All the women, although they were Black, white, and Hispanic, Muslim, Christian, Catholic, they experienced the same steps.
Hmm.
That process of love bombing, spirit breaking, then abandonment and or abuse, or being exploited sexually by their own spouse. And so, but what I analyzed was the process of getting to that, because one woman, I asked her, like, how did you end up in this lifestyle, which
Hmm.
was kind of like, I guess kind of like a swinging lifestyle, but she's like, that's not my lifestyle. I just wanted to have a good Catholic marriage. And over 9 years, he groomed her and manipulated her,
Hmm.
psychologically and emotionally abusing her, traumatizing her into this lifestyle. If she wouldn't comply with something, they would get on the road. He would drive down a dark road at high speeds and turn off the headlights, to make her comply with something, so she was being terrorized psychologically,
Hmm.
and her physical safety was being threatened, although he never touched her. And that's what they'll say, I never put my hands on her. Well, this man never touched her, but he threatened her physical safety on multiple occasions, you know. And so I just wanted people to understand that abandonment doesn't mean, oh, we're going to have a conversation, we're going to decide to separate, we're going to live in different places. It means that the person is pretty much, for lack of a better word, just kind of sideswipe, bum rushed, just out of the
Yep.
blue. The person just disappears almost like the person died.
Hmm.
You have to go through all those stages. I talk about that because we went away on a vacation with 3 people, we came back with 2, totally unprepared for that. And it's almost like we went on a vacation and someone died, someone fell off a cliff. But the other part of it is with the narcissist, sometimes that happens and that's what they intend to do, to take a family
Absolutely.
on a vacation and somebody doesn't come back. When you hear these stories about, oh, they fell off a ship, they fell off a cliff, we were hiking, trust and believe if you watch the news closely and watch real documentaries, not just flashes of news, you will
Hmm.
see that oftentimes there was some foul play involved in getting the family away from their family members, taking them, 2 or 3 states away out of the country, remote location, and then someone, goes hiking and falls off a cliff. This is a
Hmm.
very real thing. So I went through all of that in the book to give background, not my opinion, it's not a novel or, it's
Hmm.
actually, a nonfiction book that comes from my research as a policy analyst and researching the policy and the procedure, and how people are groomed into this situation.
And that's what I love about the book, because there are so many footprints in here on your research. You could tell from it. And I was excited when I got to the chapter on narcissism, because I've taught on narcissism as a therapist to other therapists and things of that nature. And I love the structure of breaking it down for the novice to really understand, because one of the things that we found is that the term narcissist was used for everything. If a person decided they needed to put themselves first, you were called a narcissist and all of that. And so one of the things I did was have to break that down for people to really understand what a narcissist is. The other thing that I love so much about your book is oftentimes we get caught up in our labels, our
Mhm.
varying religious belief systems, our roles and things of that nature, our race. Um, but this book actually transcends all of that. The scriptures that you make reference to, you bring them from the Quran, you bring them from the Bible, you include everybody so that the reader understands that there is no separation
Mhm.
in this process of abandonment, of restructuring your life, understanding even when the power comes from the family structure, saying you got to stay in, you got to give him another chance. He didn't mean it like that. That is a lot, because when you're trying to normalize your own freedom after being abandoned, and you're reminded about you as a female, you as a woman that's supposed to meet societal norms, but here you are devastated, and everybody's telling you, well, no, it can't, it couldn't have happened. Did you interact with anyone? Did that happen in your
Oh, yeah.
life at all?
That's the difference between, because some people, they just have bad behavior. They lack home training. They're just mean people and they do things. And people say, oh, they're a narcissist. Well, no, bad behavior does not a narcissist make. The narcissist is a very high level thinking person most of the time. And because they're very diabolical and that they plan things out. And so, what I found out in my research is that narcissism is on a spectrum. And the
It
high
is.
end of that spectrum is the serial killer, right? And the low end is that person that's just overindulged and, very self-centered. But the narcissist, and the serial killer at their core is a narcissist. So you're thinking about,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just bad behavior. It's something that, is planned out, is diabolical, it's a series and a way of life of
Mm-hmm.
always manipulating and using people and grooming people and bending them to your will and then casting them off. The
Yes.
very mark, if you're thinking, I don't know if my spouse is a narcissist or not, the abandonment, the discard for the spouse or even a person that you're dating or whomever is that discard. The
Mm-hmm.
narcissist is the only one that does that disappearing act, really. It's
I
they
call
just
that the garbage can. You're picked up and dropped in a garbage can in that discardment.
And,
Yeah.
I have to say, I remember saying that to my brother-in-law, like, we were discarded like we were garbage. And when I tell you, like, the dehumanizing feeling that is, but of course, we know that we're not garbage, but who does that? And then oftentimes people would ask me, like, were you having issues? Were you having problems? Well, the narcissist doesn't do that, right? Everything, we never even had an argument. We never
Mm-hmm.
had an argument throughout the whole marriage until this particular week of the disappearing act. And the whole thing was, and to get us on this vacation, and everything is just kind of, already planned out, but we don't know it, right? So oftentimes the narcissist, not all the time, they're grooming not only you, they're grooming people around you, your
Yes.
family, your friends, your coworkers, the mailman, the neighbor, whomever, because when you report the bad behavior, now the discard might be the easiest and best thing that can happen to you because it could be
Mm-hmm.
worse. It could be you taken away and you don't come back. It could be physical violence. It could be a host of other things, someone planning to, you know, have you, killed. These are actions of, the narcissist on different levels.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they groom everyone around you. So when you report the bad behavior, oh no, he's always helping out at the church, at the mosque, at the synagogue. He's always feeding the homeless. He's working, he's a doctor, he's a lawyer, he's a teacher, he's a
Mm-hmm.
therapist, he's a minister. He didn't do
Mm-hmm.
this. Well, yeah, he did, but no one's going to believe it because everyone around you has been groomed and they want to groom everyone around you so they can compromise all of your safe space. So when
Mm-hmm.
they do the deed, no one will believe you. And so many women can't even come forward
Mm-hmm.
because, all of their safe space has been compromised and they have to really step out on a limb. A lot of people ask me, like, are you crazy to write this book? Like, what are you doing? Although they believed me, they were like, but what are you doing? Like, are you afraid?
Healing. You're
This-
healing.
Yeah, I felt like, I honestly felt like if I did not write the book, I would never be the same again. Or not
Mm.
necessarily a book, but if I didn't fight back, because I have fought back long before the book came. I fought back in court, I fought back in the community. I went to my religious community and just said publicly everything that happened. I wrote an open letter to my Muslim community and so I was already fighting back before the book came about, and I really felt like if I didn't do that, that I would never be the same person again.
And the thing is what this book is going to do, in my opinion, is allow others to see they aren't alone and that there is an opportunity of freedom. The difference is narcissists don't give you an opportunity to establish a plan of freedom.
Yeah.
You have to take an opportunity because once you get that first discardment, that first threat of harm, the mental manipulation, what I usually tell clients is you need to go ahead and start identifying your exit plan because it's only going to get worse from that point. That's how that operation is. The moment, and the truth is anyone can show up in your life as a narcissist. It could be family, be it parents. When I completed the training of teaching here in Georgia, I shared that the number one narcissistic identified behavior is from a mother. And that level of manipulation, because it's emotional manipulation. Men have a tendency to go to the higher realm with serial killing and things of that nature, but their mother stays right there at this even kill place where it's constantly emotional manipulation, preventing you from being your best self. And after I did that research, people are like, you're going to tell that? Yes, because some people are in bondage to their mothers because of that narcissistic behavior. This book is really going to help a lot of people become free from situations where they didn't realize they were being selected. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and now and in my research, and of course there's like so much research, but in my research I found that more men are clinically diagnosed with narcissism than women. But like you said, it's stemming from that mother figure, right? And their
Mm-hmm.
relationship, because you will find that they don't have good relationships with their mothers. However, they will dote on them, they will make a big deal of them in public, but privately they will talk about them in very demeaning terms. And if you listen
Mm-hmm.
carefully, then you will hear that. But it will be very subtle. And you would think, oh, they're just complaining about, this, that, and the other. But it'll be very subtle. But they will talk very negatively about their mothers, but they will praise them publicly. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's always going to be some confusing things going on there.
Yeah.
Um, mhm. But I'm sorry, you asked me to talk about the grooming.
Yeah. How did I get selected? I know there's a chapter
Oh,
or a
yeah.
portion of a chapter in the book. How do you get selected?
And oftentimes people will look at themselves and then think of all the things that they did wrong, all the qualities that they lack. And oftentimes people will say, if you were groomed that way, then you must have low self esteem, or you must, it must be something wrong with you. But the narcissist, as I said, is a very high functioning individual. They're pulling high fruit, they're not pulling low lying fruit, because part of the charge for them is to manipulate and control someone who is perceived to be very, to have power, to have education, to have some sort of prestige, to have beauty, to have money. they covet these things. And so they're going to select that person because also it brings them self-esteem to say, hey, I'm a good person because look, I have this person here.
Mhm.
This arm candy, right? And not just physical arm candy, but this mental, physical, spiritual, and financial arm candy. So I'm a good person because this person wouldn't be associated with me otherwise. And so the narcissist is picking out the cream of the crop because the bigger the crop, the bigger the reward. And the reward is I'm going to control you, I'm going to manipulate you, and then I'm going to demean you, I'm going to diminish you, I'm going to discard you, and I'm going to move on to the next person. And they're always monkey branching. They're holding on to one while they're reaching for the other. And as soon as they get this one in their grasp, then they swing on to the next, right? And
Mhm.
that's how they disappear so easily and so quickly because in all likelihood they were already building the second life before they left
Mhm.
this life, and they live secret. They have lots of secret lives. So all of their lives are lived in silos: home, work, school, community. They never
Mhm.
cross over. You're not going to have access to every aspect, and there's always going to be some type of secret life playing in the background, like
Right.
elevator music, and you're never going to really be able to put your hands on it, but you're going to know something is just not right here.
Mhm.
Everything is gonna seem great, like the Thanksgiving turkey that's undercooked and everyone says, "Oh, we're just gonna not mention that, and we're just gonna eat the vegetables and the cornbread." Meanwhile, the turkey is still sitting there, and people are kind of leery, something's not quite right, but it looks good on the outside, and that's the narcissist.
Mhm.
And so that's how they groom, and that's how they make you think it's something wrong with you. It must be something that's wrong with you to be manipulated this way, that you must be a weak person. Or the narcissist will also make you feel like, oh, it's not me, it's you. And they will try to tell your whole family talks about you. Your friends talk to me, but they don't. Everyone tells me that,
Mhm.
it's you because they have to have their narrative already together. They have to have their escape plan. They will build up in one situation, he built up this case of that the wife was a heavy drinker, but no one saw her drinking, that he would come home and she's falling down drunk and all this type of stuff. And then he just leaves. So everyone's like, I don't blame him. She's a falling down drunk. Well, she never was a drinker. You-
Mhm.
And then he starts to separate her from people. So they don't really see that she's not a drinker. They only hear what he's saying, or it could be a host of other things.
And it can be, and I want to say to the audience that's listening right this moment, um, that if this is your story, please know it's not you. It's not you. Narcissists have a tendency, even for individuals that are high functioning in their life before they got with them, to target you, to break you down, because that's where ego kicks in to give them that push, that fuel to make them think like they are at the top of the food chain.
Hmm.
So don't beat yourself up. Don't think I could have done this better and things would have worked out. No, it wouldn't have.
No,
It wouldn't have.
you
So
just
stop
may have
beating
had a
yourself.
longer life with the narcissist, a longer
Exactly.
life of misery. That's all that would have happened.
Exactly. And you owe it to yourself to tap into your peace. You owe it to yourself to identify you. So if they've told the whole community about you, you still owe that peace to yourself. You still owe it to you to tap into who your authentic being is. And just remember, before that person came along, what you were like before. Sometimes you have to go back to where you were to overcome really horrible relationships, especially with a narcissist. But you have to remember, the other warning that I would give at this moment is tap into yourself and find out where your battle with belonging is. Oftentimes, when we battle with belonging, being accepted, and all of those kind of things, it can leave a crack open for a narcissist to find a way to kick the door in. Be self accepting. Say that again.
I was gonna say yes. It's so many different, and I talk about that in the 9 red flags. So many different cracks for them to slip through. Like you said, belonging, if you have a sense of belonging, or they will prey on anything that they think that you want. Whatever you want, they're gonna say, "Oh yes, I want that too." But when you're with their family, you should ask follow-up questions. Did he say that he wanted such and such a thing? And sometimes they may be sitting around looking like, what is she talking about? Or they say, oh, yes, yes, he always said he wanted to do XYZ or have this. And so some of them will also prey like on your, if you're a single mom and you want and you want a role model, in the home for your children, they will prey on that. And so we have to be very careful about the information that we reveal to anyone, that we're in courtship with or we're talking to, and we need to get more information than we give, because a narcissist will make you think that they're asking all these questions because they genuinely care, and you'll think this person is really interested in me. No, they're gathering all of this information, so they can manipulate you later. They will bring it up later. They will use this information against you. So it's like you said, a sense of belonging, or if you want to have a role model, for your children. Even one of the ladies in my book was trying to start a business. And when he realized the business she was trying to start, although he was in a totally different business, he was a psychologist, and she's trying to start a yoga studio. He says, oh, yeah, I have this all worked out. I've always wanted to do this. I'm so glad that you brought this up, and then he began to groom her. I want to help you with get this yoga studio, to purchase a home for your children. We're going to do all of these things. Well, of course, those things didn't happen, but any little thing that you say you love, they will love. You like, they will like it. You hate it, they will hate it. And that's a clue. Like, no two people want the same things. And so when all of this happens, it's the grooming process to get you to let your guard down, to make you think we must be soulmates. We have all these things in common. So they must
Absolutely.
be safe. This person must be safe, and so that's part of the grooming process.
I was smiling because you reminded me, in just talking, what it was like for me in my second marriage.
Mm,
I was married to a pastor, and I had written a book, Warfare: Breaking the Bonds of Codependency. And so I'm
oh,
speaking at a lot of different places. That book is 25 years old. I'm planning to redo it and get it back out there on the market next year. But at the time, and I'm getting all these invitations to speak everywhere, and he looked at me and said, "Don't think you're better than me. From this point forward, when you are invited to speak, you always introduce me first,
wow.
and then you speak." And I didn't know the term narcissism at the time. And I was just like, but I did know the term Marcia. What do you mean? And so, like you experienced, because I was a single mother, my children and I were abandoned. And in that abandonment, we went through a major eviction. Literally, he abandoned us, had not paid the rent, didn't know that he hadn't paid the rent. 3 days later, my kids and I were scrambling to identify where we were going to stay. On top of that, then the church people were saying, um, he wouldn't do that to you. He's a great man of God. And I'm
Mhm.
sitting there going, well, am I blind? Because no, I'm living this experience. And it came out much later that he actually did. But one of the things I refused to do was to call him and say, please come back.
Yes.
You cannot do that with a narcissist.
You're gonna get more, a second heaping helping of that uncooked turkey that you got the first time. Only this time it's gonna be worse, It's gonna be
You
laced with something, more pain, more misery. You can never take them back or ask to be, to come back, because then you have really revealed your ultimate weakness, and they will prey on you like you would not believe. If you thought the first round was bad, the second round would be 10 times worse.
absolutely. Now you started in on these 9 red flags. You mentioned a couple of them already, and that part really just got me thinking, you know, and I don't want you to give all the red flags because I want people to go get the book. I really do, because they need to have it in their hands. But the first 2 flags that jumped out to me were, he insists he is ready for marriage immediately, and you are giving more information than you're gathering. You already talked about number 2 a little bit. I'm gonna say this on that. Women, listen, we love y'all babies. We do. But stop telling all of your business, all of your past, all of your pain, how everybody else has treated you. All you're doing is adding fuel to a situation out of a space of wanting to be accepted in a relationship that could actually hurt you.
Not
You
just
don't
your
have to get
past,
the
but
situation up.
your future plans, right? Because now, being 54, I know, like, some stuff, hey, it's just, but for me, but when you tell your future plans, I was a future talker, right? I'm
Mm,
about all this in the back because, I'm 50, at the time I was 50 and I'm moving forward in life, right? And so you can't tell your future either. What your future plans, your hopes, your dreams, your endeavors, you can't share that with people. One, they would try to block you from it. And two, the narcissist would come and try to, like in your case, tag on to your plans, or, they will say, oh, yes, I want that too, and make you feel
mm-hmm,
like you're in a safe space. Now, when you were
mm-hmm,
talking about your previous husband in the book, this experience, I experienced this that week of, like I said, we never argued, not once in the whole marriage, but the
mm-hmm.
week of the abandonment, all kinds of crazy stuff was falling out, right? All kinds of arguments that, like, what is this? What's going on? But prior to that, I had turned down a position someplace, and it was literally said to me, "Who are you to turn that down? I can't get that kind of money if with 2 jobs. I have to work 2 jobs to get that kind of money," was what was said to me. "Who are you to turn that down?" Well, I was offered a position at a well-known, well-respected university, but I said, no, I'm just kind of see, testing things out to see what's out there when I'm leaving the federal government." But that's what was said to me. "Who are you to turn
Wow.
that down? Like, who am I?" I'm an expert in my field. They don't pay me because I'm cute. I'm smart. That's what Judge Judy said. Like, what do you mean? Who am I? But that
Right.
was that was the first glimpse of the mask. It slid down, and then he readjusted his mask. Because then I was like, wait,
Mm,
I'm Glenn Roundtree's granddaughter, and you're not gonna talk to me out the side of your neck any kind of way. So now I'm kind of, but I'm being calm because we never had an argument before. So I'm thinking he must have kind of a slip of something, something
right,
like,
right.
he's stressed because this is not how this is gonna go. And that's the mask slipped off. And when I said, "You have me mistaken, I'm not Michelle Obama. Like, if you go low, oh, you're gonna have a problem, right?"
We gonna have a problem because
And
I
then
hadn't gotten to
that's
the go
that's the
high.
we gonna have yeah, Houston, we have a problem here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's always a test. The narcissist women, please know, you will be tested from day one. I was tested from day one and I kept failing tests. I didn't even know I was failing because I was
Mm-hmm.
failing to be compliant. I was failing to keep the person on the pedestal. I was failing to move away from what my, spiritual and emotional and, educational and career goals were. I was failing to veer off
Yeah,
person. I was failing to be a doormat. And that person is like, oh, well, this is not working. Right. So I was constantly tested, but I didn't know I was being tested because the
mm-hmm.
test would come and then they would pull back. Oh, why don't you do this and then pull back? But can't we do that and then pull back when you say no? But they're just pulling back to reevaluate and say, okay, let me test you a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Let me test you by raising my voice and see what you do, just to see what you do. Create an argument, just
Exactly.
see how you react. It's always a test with the narcissist. Everything is a test. And
And it's always pretty subtle
very
because you're still glossed over, right? Thinking, oh, this is such a
smoky,
good
hazy
man. And
fog.
people in the community, honey, listen, take those rose-colored glasses off and really begin to identify where you are in your own life. Because one of the things you said in the book is, listen, when somebody comes in and they immediately start talking about, we got to get married, we got to do this, we got to do that. For Marcia, that's always a sign of desperation. Why are you desperate to get married? What's going on with you? The
Because
other,
they only have 90 days, maybe 120 days before the mask is going to start to slip. So they have to get you
exactly.
hooked in immediately. If they
Hmm.
can't hook you in 90 days, they'll move on. If you're
And I
asking
want to
questions, they'll move on.
Oh, and that's a good point to remind women. I know that right now, so many, both of us are in our 50s, I'm 55. Um, so many women are in a state of desperation to be in a relationship at this point in their life.
Oh, okay.
Well, I just look at
Kind of putting
um
this on the woman,
not
like,
only the different research, but just the people that's coming through my practice and stuff like that. A lot of people are really wanting to be in those loving relationships because one, they hadn't seen it before. Two, it's something that they've desired and they battle with if they are lovable, if they are enough. And so a lot of times women are, I'll say this, the 50-year-olds, we pretty much out of the game at this point because we're not taking no mess. But those younger people coming up into that are still trying to get that loving relationship without fully loving themselves, right? But
mhm.
there are some that are in our age group that are saying, I see it on Facebook all the time. I just want somebody to love me. I want to be in a relationship. And it's like, how's your relationship with yourself?
Yes, and I think the narcissist preys on both because they're very intuitive. They ask a lot of questions. They
Hmm.
actually stalk you. If you ever in a relationship with a narcissist, please know that before that person first approached you, they've been stalking you for weeks, if not months. They've been putting themselves in your outer circles and just kind of coming in like a vulture, just kind of circling in before they even meet you. So they've already done their intel, and so they know if you're one, like you said, if you kind of very much, in need of a spouse, a boyfriend, whatever, and you're very much in need of that companionship, or they know if you're very independent and you're not in need of that, and you're just kind of living your life, doing your thing, living your best life, then they already know how to approach you.
Hmm.
They already
Hmm.
have that game plan set, right?
Help the ladies out. For those of uh, women who have already established themselves, they have their
Mhm.
own money, the whole 9 yards. That, for the lack of a better thought, puzzle piece that's missing is their significant other. Help the ladies understand how actually they could be groomed quickly
Mhm.
in that perspective.
Well, the narcissist is like a leech, and so they need a host. And so they may attach to that person that's very needy, or they may attach to the person that's very independent because, they want to suck you dry, right?
Mhm.
And they want to feed off of, your accomplishments, feed off of your independence. And then the ultimate goal for them, reward for them is to be able to kind of break you down, right?
Mhm.
They want to break you down. And so that's their reward, right? And so if you're already very much established, they look for that established in your career or you're established in the community, you have a good circle of friends, you have good family ties. This is actually a draw for them because one,
Mhm.
they probably don't have that. They'll pretend to have it, but they don't. It's something that they seek and that they need and that they want. And then also, they will kind of look at you as, like I said, as a challenge. That
Mhm.
they can break you down. So if you're very much established and you are seeking to get married or you're dating or someone approaches you for marriage for whatever reason, you need to make sure you cover your bases, ask those important questions up front. Let them know up front, we would not be getting married without a prenup or a marriage contract. So in my book, I have an example of a prenuptial agreement and an example of Islamic marriage contract, which are really the same thing, right? And I talk about in depth about contracts because a contract is different from state to state. And so if
Mhm.
you have a prenup or you have an Islamic marriage contract, you have to make sure it meets the requirements of your particular state
Yes.
or it will not be honored in court. So, last ditch effort, if anyone is trying to engage you in marriage, and we're talking about the woman that's established, or even if you're not, you want to let them know we will not be getting married without a contract, one or the other, and stick to it and stick to it.
And stick
'Cause
to it.
stick to it.
Because why would you want to get to this stage in life and leave everything on the table?
Right.
And
Or
a
need
lot of people
you have
says,
nothing
well, if you get a
because that's when you
prenup, then that means you don't believe the marriage is going to be successful. That's not what that means.
can.
What that means is I have assets that I had prior to wanting to go into this marriage. And I'm going to protect those assets. Now, whatever we may accrue while we're together, if
Mhm.
something does happen, we're splitting it. But no, you
And that's
even
amazing.
if your asset
That's
is your
amazing.
home,
I talk about that too. It's not necessary, even in a 50-50 state, it doesn't mean that it's going to be 50-50. That's
that's
based
right.
on circumstances. So all of that business about, oh, California, Virginia, they're 50-50 states. That's okay. Only if the person doesn't contest. You can contest anything, right? And even
Hmm.
if you don't have anything, let's say you're just starting out with your career or you don't even have a career yet, you still need a prenup or a marriage contract because what you can protect is yourself and any children to say, hey, if you walk off from this marriage without cause, then I want XYZ. I want 90 days of alimony. I want a year of alimony, which is the requirement if you have an Islamic marriage contract. A lot of people don't know that. If you're married and you're a Muslim, outside of him proving infidelity, which requires him to have even witnesses, then you're owed 12 months of support.
Okay.
It can
Okay.
change based on where you are or based on the circumstances, but that's the standard, right? But even if you don't have, like I said, an established career, you want to have a prenup. And you can include things like that when you move forward in your career. Or even if it's just very basic to say, hey, if you leave without cause, then this is what is the expectation. I'm going to keep the family home, excuse me, or I'm going to get 90 days, 6 months, 12 months of spousal support. You need to put those things in writing up front, even if you have nothing.
And don't allow your damaged ego to say, I'll just walk away with nothing.
Yes.
Don't do that to yourself. Um, because there are laws out there that can protect you and can help provide for you. So I, I know, and I know I don't know the full side of the grant writing and all that kind of stuff, but I know that in this book you give some very specific guidance on things about their marital contract, even the case studies that's in the book. If others wanted to really grab hold of you for further information, even to just ask questions about the marital contract, even to ask questions about reclaiming your life, how would they reach you?
Okay. They can and I am not an attorney or a marriage counselor, but I just gathered this information with my research to make it easier for people to maneuver through this process. First, to protect yourself. Number one, the book is going to help you protect yourself if you
Yeah.
are not in this situation and how to look out for it. And it's also going to help you get out of this situation and recover if you have already gone beyond the point of protecting yourself. But the best way to reach me, well, my publisher is creating my business platforms, and so right now I just have my personal Facebook page, which is Kaleema Overton Ameen. So you can reach out to me there. You can also reach out to me by email at kaleemaamin@gmail.com. And those will be the quickest ways to get in touch with me until the business platform comes up.
And I just want to say again, thank you so very much. I know y'all know how I am on Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. I don't just bring people on just for the sake of bringing them on. I bring them on so they can bring you life changing information. Listen, go out and get this book. I think we talked on Wednesday or Thursday or something like that, Wednesday.
Wednesday.
And I immediately, after I went and saw what Amazon had to say and looked at Kalima's Facebook page, I immediately went and ordered it and got it last night.
Thank
I'm
you.
telling you that there are so many tools inside of this book that is going to change your life. Just go grab the book. Kalima, any last words before we get out of here today?
I just want people to know that Again, the book Hidden in Plain Sight, it covers the grooming process, love bombing, spirit breaking, and abandonment, how you can recognize that you're being groomed and get out. And if not, then it does cover also those 9 red flags and 8 steps to recovery. Because when this type of abuse is mental, physical, spiritual, and financial, oftentimes we're not fully recovered and healed. And so we end up making these same mistakes over and over again. And so the healing must also be mental, physical, spiritual, and financial to be holistic and have complete healing. So we can't, because we always want to make better choices. But if we're only partially healed, we can want to make the better choices, but we don't actually get an opportunity to make them because we
Mhm.
fall into old habits. And so that's what I want people to know, that your healing must be complete, mental, physical, spiritual, and financial, and that your voice is powerful. That is the ultimate weapon that you have. I wish I could say hang a string of garlic around your neck and they'll run off, but no, you need to have a voice. Do not
Mhm.
stifle your voice. Do not back down and do not be in fear, because the creator is the ultimate, the only being that you need to fear, and you can
Definitely.
conquer and overpower any obstacles. When I tell you that my life was a hot mess for a minute there, but I always knew that, I don't know how, don't know when, but God is going to bring me out of this hot mess. Don't know what's going to happen on the other end, but my trauma birthed a book. So embrace the changes, move forward, and you'll see on the other end that the creator does have something more powerful for you.
And there's always, and for me, there's always a purpose to this journey.
Hmm.
There's always a purpose to this journey. Don't spend too much energy in regret
Hmm.
or self doubt. There's a purpose to this journey. So listen, um, I need you all to just get out there and get this book. I can't, I don't know if you all can even feel my excitement about this book, but get out there, get this book, Hidden in Plain Sight. Buy a couple of copies, give it to some of your girlfriends that you see going through some things and don't even know that they are in the midst of a storm or a battle. Go ahead and get it. I cannot wait to finish reading it because I want to go out there and put a Google review out there and an Amazon review out there because I think it's just that powerful. Thank you again, Kaleema, for your yes. I
Be so.
cannot wait. Because I'm sure we're gonna collab on something else at
Oh, that
some
would
point.
be great.
And so we'll talk to you all soon. I am going to do everything that I can to have this episode ready within a week so that I can get it out there to you all. Listen, take good care. You'll have Kalima's contact information at the end of this recording, and then you all know how to get in contact with me. Authentically Peculiar with Marcia, Marcia Blaine, yada yada yada, all that kind of good stuff. The podcast will release on Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, and now I have a dedicated podcast page on Facebook. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, comment, but in all else, go out there and support. Grab this book, get you some support, get you some freedom, and we'll see you the next time on Authentically Peculiar with Marcia.
Thank you.